How are you?
I'm fine, Cliff. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Huh?
Boy, it's good to talk to you. A couple of issues that over the last month since I was last with you guys, that I'd like to take just a couple moments to talk
Oh,
about.
please do.
You might recall last month we had a discussion about the United States Postal Service,
Right.
and how there were budget cuts that were just unbelievable, how millions of veterans were being affected by prescription pharmaceuticals not being delivered timely. And of course, there were allegations raised throughout the media, obviously, that this was an attempt at voter suppression, more or less, because if the vote couldn't get in by mail timely and not counted, then obviously it would not be, our democracy would not be served. So during the last, and I remember, Cliff, you had said, what can be done about this? And actually, shortly thereafter, in fact, the day that we were talking, the Congress was in session, and they were outraged by all of this. And then a federal judge over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you've heard about this, two judges actually ruled against the United States Post Office cuts, saying that election mail must be prioritized, that in these situations that mail must be delivered, that overtime cannot be denied if overtime is requested, that there is to be priority mail actually delivered for these ballots. U.S. District Judge Victor Murillo in New York, Southern District, became the second judge a couple of days ago to rule and side against the United States Post Office. So the good news is that there's an injunction of the Post Office going ahead and cutting back, and it looks like we made some progress in that regard. So that's obviously a real important thing that's occurred during the last couple of weeks. The other update is, and you might know our executive producer, we're proud of her, Glenda Smith. We know that there have been a real hot button topic of hers for years has always been sexual harassment of the female troops that serve. And you'll recall that we talked about the situation with Vanessa Guillen, if you remember. And Vanessa was murdered at Fort Hood, if you recall, by a soldier who dismembered her. And it turned out that soldier was actually harassing Vanessa sexually, and she was afraid to report. And in fact, the reason that he probably allegedly killed her was because of that sexual harassment. And there's really, previous to Vanessa being murdered, in the follow-up with Vanessa, I must tell you there was very little teeth to anything with regard to sexual discrimination. But now there's a bill that was introduced, bipartisan. Wow. It is the Vanessa Guillen Act, introduced by Democratic Representative Jackie Speier of California and Republican Mark Green Mullen of Oklahoma. And what there is they're going to make it a crime in the Uniform Code of Military Justice to sexually harass females. So now people could be charged with crimes. And that's big. That's a big deal. That bill is going to make its way through, probably be voted on in the very near future and become law. And once again, bipartisan. So finally, we have something designed to help victims who report sexual assault and sexual harassment. And we need that because obviously this has been going on quite some time.
Counsel, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's one. The other update that I want to at least talk about today, it's not really an update, but I wanted to talk about the census. And we heard a couple announcements preceding the show about the census. You might have heard in the news this week that the census is due to be complete. It was due to be complete at the end of September. of this year. Now, why is the census important to veterans? Well, what they do, what the census does, and of course the census, what the reason for the census and why I'm imploring and exhorting everybody out there to fill out your census forms. Because what happens is that based on the population of the particular metropolitan area like Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, if we're undercounted, then we don't get as many House of Representatives seats or senators. And I think we know how important that is. And it also, it means how much funding is given to a particular city or jurisdiction who has more people. More people, the more funding, right? You get more government services. We're talking billions of dollars. And the Trump administration, and this is not secret or political statement, but they basically want to exclude undocumented citizens and people who live here but are not documented citizens. Well, that disenfranchises or takes away all those people's rights to do anything. But why is it important to veterans? Well, 7.5% of the population at the last census, and the census is taken every 10 years, 7.5% are veterans. 28, and it turned out that in the Gulf War, they've determined 18% of veterans, of people who served in the Gulf War. And it's important because veteran data helps actually decide how much money there is for VA home loan guarantee programs, post 9/11 GI Bills, job training and hiring preference programs, provide health care for veterans, planned end-of-life options for veterans, ensure equal opportunity for veterans, understand new challenges for veterans, and how many percentage of Americans are veterans among the population. And why people would say, well, why don't they just go to the VA? The VA has to have all this stuff. Well, true, they do, but they don't do that. They don't give out information. Now, what about the census? Well, as it turns out, the census was originally going to have to be done at the end of April, but we all know what happened in March. There was the pandemic, so they extended it until the end of September. Well, our president, our commander-in-chief, has decided he wants this in, and I'm not going to speculate as to why, but there is some speculation out there that perhaps many people have not yet gotten their census completed. They've had a lot more important things to worry about. And, of course, our mail system with the budget cutbacks of late has not been very good. So there was a court decision this week, just a couple of days ago. A federal judge ordered, hey, we're now going to give it to October 31st for the census.
Okay.
We have now another month, because a federal judge in California ruled on Thursday night, it was just a couple of days ago, obviously, that the national counting for the 2020 census can continue through October 31st. Now, this judgment, I got to tell you, from this court is being appealed by the Trump administration in the latest twist of what's become a long-term political dispute. Because obviously the Trump administration wanted this census data in before the election, and they wanted the census counted. But many people feel right now that the degree of the amount of people who really filled out the census have not been that great. So I have to implore and urge everybody how important this is for not only, our well-being, our funding that comes in through the state or for the state, for the city, for municipal programs through the federal government. If you guys don't get out there and fill these censuses out, we're going to be undercounted and it's going to affect us. And believe me, there are certain people who want the big cities who may be Democratic to be affected by a lack of census data. So now I'll shut up.
No, shut up. No, we don't want you to do that because you give us all of this great information, Steve. That's why we're so happy that you support America's Heroes Group and give us all this information. So at this point, then, what do you think will happen?
What do I think is going to happen is it definitely is going to be continued to October 31st. The question is, can we get it continued further than that? And I think there's going to be a movement afoot to try to do that. But, what really bothers me is I'm a little bit concerned right now that a lot of veterans and a lot of people are not going to really understand how important this is. It comes around once every 10 years, and it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does make a big difference.
To go up, for instance, we have to obviously be heard and counted. I'm sorry, what were you saying, Cliff?
Yeah, it does make a big difference. It's more than just a count, right?
Right. It's more than just more than just count. You know, this so much of this depends upon, you know, how much money is given for programs, for employment, for GI bills, right? For healthcare for GIs. And obviously, you know, these are very, very important items.
What do you think is going to happen there?
I think that there'll be an extension, but probably not very much longer. Maybe through November till the election is over. But after that, I think that the census is going to have to, the count is going to have to be heard. So people have to get their forms in. I'm sure everybody's gotten it through the mail. There's been a lot of press over it recently, but we're down to the last month. As far as our post office situation, I think that's good news. I think when you were last year, we were worried about, whether or not there'd be a massive undercounting of mail-in ballots, and also not to mention the veterans won't get their benefits, their prescription medications and the like. I think that's a good thing right now because of the recent court decisions that say that, hey, we're okay. We're going to fund the post office. We're going to make sure that mail gets delivered, and any of those previous budget cuts are going to be reinstated until after the election. Now, after the election, because so many veterans depend upon medications being delivered by the mail, we're going to have some type of a lobbying effort to make sure that things get moving along and we get funded. But that's what I think will happen.
Before I let you go, and you've been great, as you always are. What about the lady who just went to Justice Greenberg?
Oh, Justice Ginsburg passing?
Yes.
Tremendous person.
Yeah.
And I understand the president nominated a few minutes ago Amy Barrett to the Supreme Court, who is very conservative. She actually clerked for Justice Scalia, and she's 48 years old, Cliff. So,
yeah, I know. I'm surprised to hear that.
Yeah, so if you have a 48-year-old with a conservative bent, right, and you have Justice Ginsburg, who died in the 90s, right?
Yep.
You have someone who theoretically could be and alter the course of the Supreme Court for the next 40-some-odd years. 40-some-odd years, I mean, at least. So, the potential is there. Now, all as lawyers, we hope, is that, there's nothing we can do about it if it gets passed. Remember Merrick Garland, President Obama wanted him in, and he let him. Yeah, and of course the Republicans had control, and they quashed the deal, and now they're saying, oh well, this is different. Well, I don't know what's different about it. Merrick Garland, by the way, is Chicagoan, a Lincolnwood, went to Niles West, my alma mater, tremendous guy. Okay. Tremendous jurist, was really basically, left out of that position. And now we have this woman who probably will get the position. I think from what I'm hearing, because of unfortunately, the Senate is controlled by Republicans, that we are probably going to see this new Supreme Court justice be confirmed, just like Kavanaugh, just like Gorsuch. But we all can,
yeah. No, I think you're totally correct. I think she'll be confirmed also. Yeah. There's not much, not enough Republicans there to stop her.
No. I think that when once they needed, we had Collins and Murkowski, the Republicans, who said they were not thought that it should wait till after the election, and Romney was really the swing guy there. Yeah. And Romney, surprisingly to me, said, hey, too bad. If he would have come aboard, then you would have gotten one more. But I think now it's hopeless. And you know who the tiebreaker is, right, Cliff? We have Vice President Pence. If there's a tie,
Sure.
he's going to be the great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
He sure will be.
I don't think he's voting with Democrats, and the divergency, the difference between Justice Ginsburg and this woman, I think, is going to be legion. I mean, there's just it's very. I mean, there's very little to say about it. You only hope, as a lawyer, I only hope that these judges, because they're judges and they're intellectually honest, you hope that their personal feelings can be put aside and they're going to follow the law. But that might be a little bit of wishful thinking.